And we are following live the Justin Ross Harris trial out of Brunswick, Georgia. The jury has taken a break right now for lunch. It was a very exciting day in court, a lot going on. For one, the jury was able to go and see the car that Cooper was left inside. They brought it all the way from Cobb County, Georgia, and the jury went outside. They left the courtroom to go view this car. We also had a number of other developments that happened in court as well regarding some of Justin Ross Harris's search history. So some major developments this morning. I wanted to bring in Court Chatter's Cathy Russon. She's with us right now on the Skype. Are you there, Cathy? Cathy? She on?
Okay, now can you hear me?
Yay, I can hear Cathy.
Good.
Okay, good. So, a couple of things. Let's first talk about this morning early when they saw the vehicle that Justin Ross Harris was driving Cooper in. You had some thoughts. Obviously, the defense tried to move for a mistrial based on the jurors being able to walk around the car and poke their head inside. You kind of sided with the defense, it sounds like, on that front.
I did a little bit, but then came back to, I can argue both sides, which I usually do. You know, the defense's argument was that this was tantamount to a recreation, which is not allowed by jurors. And they got to walk up to the car, walk around it twice with the door closed, twice with the door open, then they got to spend an additional 5 minutes walking around it. Now, the defense's argument was, all of those jurors aren't Ross's height, 6 foot, and so now you've got a 5'5" juror walking up to the car. That's going to be a completely different view than what Ross had. Mm-hmm. The sunlight is not the same that day. We have seen different views of the side of this car, and we've seen one view where the back driver's window where he's walking up is dark, it's tinted because the back windows are tinted. It's dark and you can't see in. Today, when the media tweeted out the pictures, which let us know that's how the jury saw it, you could see inside the back. The tinting wasn't that dark. Well, that has to do with reflection and sunlight. So the defense's argument was, this is not exactly how the scene was that day, and now the jurors are getting to, they witnessed jurors kind of stick their head in. They were not allowed to touch the car, and they were not allowed to get into the car, sit in the car. But defense attorney Kilgore argued that he sat out there and watched jurors kind of poke their head in the driver's window and looked like that. That's not what Harris did that day. We've seen video. So that's the argument. Now,
Anthony, and our freelancer, our reporter in the field, emailed us some pictures of the car. She sent them to you as well. Are you able to bring them up so in case people missed it? We'll bring those pictures up in a few minutes while we're talking about this. But I think Cathy brings up some really good points in that, you know, when the jurors go out to the car, the conditions, the weather is very different than when Justin Ross Harris left Cooper inside the car. This whole idea of people being different heights and perhaps the tinting of the windows was different because of the sun reflecting on those windows. As far as I can see from those pictures that we're going to bring up, you know, you could obviously see inside of the car, but perhaps that day you couldn't, right, Cathy?
Right. Well, it looks like it's so hard to tell because all we have is this surveillance video from the parking lot at Home Depot, and it's grainy, and the car's far away from the cameras. They have enhanced it, but it definitely is not the same sunlight or same glare that would have been. Now, there's also another argument that he was walking up to his car at lunchtime on an angle so he could maybe see through the front windshield. So there's that argument too, but that's what I'm saying. It's all very, you know, subjective. And however, the judge did deny that defense request for a mistrial. And, you know, a point brought up is, look, it's a piece of evidence. If there was a gun involved in this case, the jury would have the gun back in the jury room during deliberations, and they could manipulate the gun however they wanted to. Nobody can stop them really from doing that. They're not supposed to conduct experiments, but they would have it there. So this really isn't that much different than that.
So let's move on from the car. As you said, the defense went for a mistrial based on what happened this morning. judge said no. So they continued with some testimony this morning. And one of the things that he was a kind of forensic computer guy that they had on the stand from an investigation company that Cobb County had privately hired. He talked about some of the searches that Justin Ross Harris did, particularly which was one I'd kind of forgotten about, and I'm glad that they brought back up, was how to survive prison. And in that search, he found that Justin Ross Harris had actually cleared his search history, presumably so he didn't want anyone to find out what he had been searching for. I thought the prosecution had a good day this morning, and we'll see what happens this afternoon, but would you agree?
Definitely. Today, so far today, which, we haven't had a lot of testimony today, but with the jury view and with the start of this forensic witness, it's looking good for the state. The clearing of the history, they're really honing in on that. Now, my chatters in my chat room, a lot of them are like, what's the big deal? I clear my history all the time. Some people are saying they clear their history every day at the end of the day.
Okay, so I've never cleared my history in my life. That's not
Your
something...
machine might run really slow.
Maybe that's why my computer's so slow, but I mean, that's not something I would intuitively do, but perhaps it is something that's not entirely unusual. It's certainly suspect if you're Googling something like that, and then you clear your browser history. I could see how jurors could definitely be tainted by that fact.
Yes, absolutely. And you see how I'm arguing both sides, and this is exactly what trial watchers are doing. They're going here, they're going there, they're going back, they're going forth, and that could mimic those 12 jurors in the deliberation room.
Kathy, sorry to...
their life experiences. Somebody in there may say, look, I clear my browser history once a week. It's my habit of doing that. I do that, or look, he was clearing his browser history because he was having multiple affairs. He doesn't want his wife to see any of that or his work to see any of that, So they're going to bring in all that discussion into the jury room.
Absolutely. And honestly, that's kind of what I thought when I saw initially that he had searched for that. I thought he was more concerned not about the fact he had intentionally killed his child, if that was the case. But I think he searched that because he was concerned about texting underage girls, and he was scared he'd get caught for that. So, that's why he was searching for something like how to survive prison. Not so much he had this big plan to murder his child. That's my suspicion.
Yeah, well, that is definitely a point that's been brought up as just discussing this case, that, he was engaged in illegal activity,
and he knew it.
That could make sense on that point. But here's the other thing that we know about Ross Harris: he searched everything. He Googled everything. He was looking up things all the time. It's like his personality to constantly do that. Also, we have testimony in the trial that he was watching a show, Orange is the New Black, which is a prison show.
Yes, I watched that. Yes.
So is he looking it up because because of that show? I don't know.
And then, sorry, Kathy, just to go back, we did get some of those pictures that I was referring to from this morning when the jurors went out to see the car. Of course, we couldn't shoot the jurors out there. We can't show their faces or their identities, but let's see if we can pull up those pictures. And you can see the car and people milling around. You get a closer look. They're looking inside the car. And again, like you said, the windows don't look that tinted. There it is being brought in. So, it is a good point that you bring up, the fact that the weather conditions could have been different this morning, and that could have an effect on how jurors view whether it's reasonable that Justin Ross Harris just didn't see his child in the back seat.
Well, so I agree with the judge for not granting a mistrial based on the jury view. By the way, that I was asked this, the defense did object to this view all along. I was asked, why are they objecting now after the fact? They've always objected to it. So that they just wanted to then come back and put on the record and request a mistrial. However, this is the opportunity the defense will have in their closing argument to argue that type of thing about the viewing of the car.
And a lot of people are weighing in on our Facebook page right now, and they're talking about how they Google stuff a lot too. They Google everything when they're watching TV shows. the most bizarre stuff will come up. And honestly, that is true. If you went through my Google history as someone that writes for a news organization, you'd probably think I was like some kind of criminal, because I'm always looking up, is it illegal to do this?
Yeah.
You know?
I say it all the time. I
right.
say it all the time. I'd be terrified for people to look up my history.
Exactly. So everything can be interpreted one way or another, and I think the jurors are just going to have to kind of take all this evidence piece by piece and see if it, in their minds, draws a bigger picture of intent, which is, of course, what the prosecution is trying to prove by all of this. Anything else about this morning that we didn't hit on, Cathy? What about this this idea he was booking? Apparently, he was booking a cruise for just 2 adults.
Yeah, that's a little different than what we've heard before. The defense brought out in cross-examination before that, look, he was booking a cruise. He was looking for passport fees for the child. They were taking Cooper on a vacation. He's not going, that doesn't
He's not going to kill. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't mean he's planning to kill him. And then now all of a sudden we see a search for a cruise, and there's just 2 adult passengers, 0 children.
That's certainly interesting, because if he was planning, I mean, it could be a couple of things. Was he planning on taking one of his women on this cruise, or was this a cruise that him and Leanna were somehow planning without Cooper, or had he just forgotten to check one child? Because he hadn't booked it yet, from what I understand. He was just kind of browsing the web to see what the fares were and see the price, right?
Right. And the other thing is, they were planning on going on this vacation with his brother and his brother's family.